The Titanfall series needs no introduction. These are games that I have strongly praised for their incredible movement, captivating gameplay, and intense multiplayer matches. The series is an expression of absolute competence on part of the developers at Respawn Entertainment, setting a new example for all first-person shooters. I have continued to praise this game even years later, as I truly do believe it is one of the best shooters to ever come out in the last decade. And with all the new information about a potential third Titanfall game being in development, it seemed like the perfect time to revise over some old ideas I came up with for Titanfall 3. With that being said, this video will be a personal wishlist for all the things I would want to see in a third game, and will be the start of a series I plan on doing about Titanfall 3, in which I go over the various concepts and ideas I have accumulated over the past year. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it, starting off with the campaign. The story should follow off of that left over by Titanfall 2, and should be a continuation to the events of that game. This is the perfect opportunity for Respawn to expand the universe of Titanfall, and perhaps go into even greater detail about the origins of the frontier, such as the early pioneer days, and explain the events that led up to the war between the IMC and militia in the first place. For the story itself, I would personally want to see more from the varying factions taking part within the war, not just from the perspective of the militia, but also from the IMC and freelancer groups such as the 6-4. The story should focus on the larger scale conflict between these groups, and lead up to a large final battle that will conclude the story nicely. Perhaps Jack Cooper can return, but instead of being a member of the militia, he could take up on Blizz's offer and join the Apex Predators in order to rebuild BT as a side story. But with this being the third game, it should focus on the conclusion of the war and the events leading into Apex Legends. With that being said, there should be plenty of time left between these two games for additional stories to be explored and expanded upon. If the story is to be told from multiple perspectives, there needs to be a wider range of characters, each with different personalities and motives. I believe that older characters should return, going all the way back to the original Titanfall. Characters such as Bish and Sarah never really got the proper development they deserve, and this third game should serve them justice. On the topic of bringing back older characters, I would very much like to see the return of Jack Cooper, as I do believe that his story is just getting started and there is a lot more to explore with the development of this character. Having the campaign be told from different perspectives, similar to what was seen in the original Titanfall, would be the perfect way to expand upon the narrative and provide some much needed development onto the wide array of characters. New characters should come in to fill these roles and should provide insight onto the different factions by having their stories be told in the campaign. Not only that, but compelling side characters should be there also to provide additional development for our new and old protagonists alike. It is undeniable that Titanfall is known for its incredible gameplay, specifically for its fluent and satisfying movement that makes the combat encounters so engaging and fun. However, Titanfall 2's campaign had very little arenas that encouraged the player to make full use of their mobility, and for most of the game, the platforming puzzles remain relatively similar. Two exceptions to this would be acquiring the time travel device in Infected Cause, and the arc tool in the beacon, which challenged the player by changing the platforming elements and adding a layer of complexity, something else that the player had to manage, and these moments were awesome and should be the design philosophy for future platforming puzzles. Some would see these puzzles as just moments to break up the combat, and sure, that's one way of looking at it, but there is something to learn from them. Getting better at these platforming sections directly translates to you moving better in combat, and in turn makes you a better player. The platforming sections in between moments of combat should be designed to teach players of the mobility they have available to them. Have short wall running paths that have players chain together jumps to increase their velocity. Have sections where the player has to slide under an object and quickly jump a gap. Add a grapple point that teaches players of slingshotting and air control. The arenas, in turn, should be designed for players to make use of the mechanics they learn and apply it to their regular gameplay. I have more to say on this topic, but I'll save it for a future video. For now, I'll leave it at this. Have the platforming puzzles in Titanfall 3 be something the players can learn from. Have them increase in difficulty where the player has to make full use of the mechanics they learn, and in turn, design the arenas to allow for these mechanics to be utilized in combat. Enemy design in Titanfall 2's campaign is possibly its greatest flaw, and is the only reason I don't see this game as a flawless masterpiece. Don't get me wrong, I still love the game, but this is an area that needs major improvements, starting with the AI. I don't know if it's due to time constraints or if Respawn was lacking programmers, but the AI in Titanfall 2 is abysmal to say the least. They don't evade your attacks, they don't position themselves strategically or try to flank you, they just stand there and take your shots. They don't really challenge the player besides being super accurate, and changing the difficulty, even to master, doesn't change their behavior at all. This needs to be radically changed to make Titanfall 3 a masterpiece. Make enemies be more evasive and have them perform unique attacks that force the player to multitask, to not only move quickly, but to lead and gauge their shots. Have pressure units that lock down an area or get up close to the player, forcing them to move. Have units that are weak to certain weapons or attacks. All of this will do wonders to greatly improve the combat encounters within the campaign, and make the overall experience more challenging and engaging for the player. I now want to switch my focus to the adjustments I'd like to see made to multiplayer. Titanfall 2's multiplayer was damn near perfection, but there are a few new features that I would like to see be introduced to increase replayability and overall enjoyment, starting off with the pilot loadouts. In Titanfall 2, your loadout was based around your tactical, whether it be cloak or stim. The weapons and playstyle you adopt would be dependent on what tactical you had equipped. Additionally, each tactical had a distinguishing look in game. I would personally want to see the system return with even more tacticals to choose from, and have the tacticals be the base for any loadout. Maybe you can even introduce perks similar to how Titan kits work, that change the tactical's behavior slightly. For example, Grapple might have two perks, where one decreases its range but the wire is electrified, and the other can be equipped to decrease the cooldown or give it a third charge. Simple additions like this would increase experimentation and make the experience more customizable. Keep the ability to pick any ordnance, maybe introducing one or two more to the roster, and definitely keep the 3-weapon system. I don't know what Respawn was thinking by not having this be in Titanfall 2 at launch, but I'm glad it's here now and I hope it stays. Finally, have more impactful pilot kits. At the moment, the pilot kits in Titanfall 2 are very underwhelming, and there isn't really many good ones to pick from. Wall hang shouldn't even be a kit. In Titanfall 1 you could wall hang without it taking up a slot, so why is it different for Titanfall 2? I have a few ideas and I'll probably make a video going more in depth, but I'll keep it simple for this video. Have 3 different kits, one assigned to movement upgrades such as increased wall running distance or the ability to triple jump, and the other 2 are reserved for special perks. Modern Warfare is a good example. They had some awesome customization with their perk system, and I think Titanfall 3 should adopt some of the ideas seen in that game. For example, a perk that tracked recent footsteps, or one that kept you hidden from sonar pulse and map hack. I just want to see more creativity with the pilot kits, and give us more to choose from. Other than that, I don't see any other way to improve the loadout system. I don't really have a lot to say about the weapons in Titanfall 2. They were all great and satisfying to use, and I'd like to see them all return, with some balancing changes of course. And perhaps we can see a new class of weapons being introduced, such as marksman rifles. I want to see Respawn experiment a little more with the weapons. The Grenadier class for Titanfall 2 was a good example. They were all very unique and definitely heaps of fun to use. And I'd just like to see a little more this sort of design carry over with Titanfall 3. Maybe introduce a new experimental class of weapons that were energy based, or perhaps laser weapons. I think that'd be really cool. As for customization, I don't really know what to say. Titanfall 2 was a bit limited. Perhaps there could be more weapon attachments, introduce more scopes. I know there's a few scopes in Apex Legends which would work really well for Titanfall. Other than that, I'd say the perks such as speed reloader and extended mag be tied to certain weapon attachments, similar to how Modern Warfare did it. Each weapon attachment has pros and cons. One grip might give you faster aim down sight speed but less stability. Maybe something like that be introduced in Titanfall 3, with some changes in mind to keep it balanced for that game. There are definitely things I'd like to see change to the Titans in Titanfall 3. I'd like the damage modifiers for anti-Titan weapons to remain the same, but when it comes to Titan versus Titan encounters, I'd like the damage modifier to be a little less. I'd also like to see the return of regenerating shields from Titanfall 1, but maybe not have them soak so much damage and maybe have them regenerate just a little bit slower. This will help to make Titan encounters more reliant on intelligent use of abilities in combination with each other and prioritization of weak points. I personally prefer the class system as seen in Titanfall 2, however I can appreciate the large amount of customization we have with the loadouts in Titanfall 1. So perhaps for Titanfall 3, there is a way to merge these two systems together. The Flying Teacup has a good video of an idea for this, and I'll leave a link to his video in the description, but I have a few changes I'd like to make to his idea. He proposed that each Titan chassis, whether it be Strider, Atlas or Ogre, should have access to multiple weapons which are specific to that chassis. For example, Ronin as a Strider class would have access to the lead wall shotgun, plasma railgun or quad rocket, and as a Ronin you would have sword block and phase dash as two chassis specific abilities, with the option to change your offensive ability to anything you want. I would prefer a similar system to this, but instead each specific Titan, such as Ronin and Northstar, would have access to multiple different weapons which are only specific to that Titan. For example, Northstar may have access to the plasma railgun and another type of sniper weapon, and Ronin would have access to two types of shotguns. Something like this, where there are options to choose from, but other players can still distinguish easily what Titan is which and what abilities they have. I have a different idea for customizing abilities, however. See, each ability could have a component, which would change how the ability acts and how the Titan is built, introducing benefits and drawbacks to a Titan's stats. For example, Ion may have a component for laser shot that changes it to a focus beam, but the component increases energy consumption and increases armor integrity. Imagine if each ability for every Titan had two components to choose from. This would create massive variety from Titan to Titan while still sticking to the hero system, and is something I hope to see implemented in Titanfall 3. Every single map from both Titanfall games are incredible. They are built to accommodate for the increased mobility of pilots and large-scale combat of the Titans, and I hope that Respawn can maintain this level design in Titanfall 3. However, if I had to pick a specific game, I would take more inspiration from the Titanfall 1 maps, as I believe they do offer a little more creativity and originality in their design. And I like how each map had their own unique gimmick. For example, Export, you could shoot the battery and electrify the big pole at the top of the map. And Swampland with its large trees that allow for excellent pilot traversal. You just don't really see these types of unique map designs carry over to Titanfall 2. Don't get me wrong, Titanfall 2 has some really great maps. Glitch especially, it's hands down my favorite map from both games. However, I would recommend that Respawn take more inspiration from the Titanfall 1 maps, as I found them to be more enjoyable to play on than the Titanfall 2 maps, but that's me personally. Of course, everything in this video is opinion based, but I hope Respawn does consider a few of these ideas. I would personally love it if in Titanfall 3 we saw all the previous maps from both games. I doubt they were actually going to get that. Whatever the case, I trust that Respawn will be able to deliver on excellent map design yet again for Titanfall 3. I would love to see more original game modes be introduced. I prefer a lot of one flag game modes that act similar to Oddball and Halo. I personally want to see the return of free-for-all. I know it didn't work all too well, but there can be adjustments made to make the experience more balanced and fair. I would love a game mode with a moving hardpoint that players had to take control of and it rotates around the map. I would love a game mode where control points drop from the sky and players have to make a mad dash to secure it to earn points. And I could definitely see a multi-team game mode working for Titanfall. Perhaps my craziest idea is the introduction of a conquest-like game mode from Battlefield or Modern Warfare. Just to have this massive 30-player game mode with enemy AI dropping into the map, where teams have to secure 5 points across some of the largest maps we've ever seen in Titanfall. That would just be awesome, and I would definitely love to play those larger 30-minute game modes. Private matches in Titanfall 3 need to return, and they need to offer more customization. I personally host a lot of game nights with my friends, and with Titanfall 2, there isn't really a lot of settings to adjust and really have fun. So for Titanfall 3, I would love to see the ability to adjust Titan cooldown for abilities and tacticals for pilots. I'd love a speed modifier and a jump height modifier. I'd love the ability to turn on and off the jump kits. And also, the ability to change the time and the score to higher numbers, because if I want to have a skirmish game in Titanfall 2, I can only set the max score to it's less than 100, and I can only set the timer to under 45 minutes, and that's just ridiculous. Timer should be infinite, and score should be infinite, and we should just be able to end the game whenever we want. If you need inspiration, just look at Halo's custom games. In Halo 5, you could customize pretty much everything, and you could do team-specific customizations. Like one team might be able to do this and that, while the other team couldn't. So for Titanfall 3, I'd love to see that as well. Uh, all of this is probably not going to happen because I know private matches isn't really a concern. But please, Respawn, if you're listening, I play a lot of private matches, and to have all these quality of life changes will just be awesome. We could have some real fun in private matches, and there's heaps of potential, so please just add some more settings to adjust. Also, add the ability to save playlist. If we come up with this really fun and unique game mode, I want to be able to save it and instantly go into my saves files, click, load, and just play. That'd be awesome. Just quality of life changes like that would be cool. So that's it for my Titanfall 3 wishlist. I will make a future video discussing all the changes I'd like to see to Frontier Defense, and I'll make a separate video also discussing about customization and more to do on cosmetic side, because I do have more ideas about that. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, really help me out, share with your friends, leave a comment, all that, or don't, you don't have to, but I'd appreciate it. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all in the next video. But for now, this is the Gaming Maverick signing off.